This episode is brought to you by Rescue Intellitech, innovating solutions to keep firefighters safe. Their Solo Rescue Decon Washer helps reduce cancer risks by cleaning contaminated gear quickly and effectively. Learn more at rescueintellitech.com because clean gear saves lives. Hi, Chris Mc Loone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of EVT Talk. Today, my guest is Kevin Roberts, no stranger to this podcast. He's been on it before. He is the president of the EVTCC, and he is a frequent contributor to the RIG, www.rigspot.com. In fact, we're going to be talking about one of your articles in just a little bit. You may be wondering about the look of the of our set here. Kevin is actually working right now. I was able to grab him today. We are both at the Fire Truck Training Conference, the annual Fire Truck Training Conference that takes place up in Lansing, Michigan. We're going to talk about the importance of these events. You know, right now, these days, departments are holding on to their fleet, their rigs in their fleet longer. Which means they are in for repair, possibly more often. As rigs get older, they just, things break. But the key is to get those rigs back in service as quickly as possible. That's the ultimate goal. But Kevin, just to get us rolling here, you are a perennial attendee at the Fire Truck Training Conference. Talk a little bit about what you do here when you attend.
Yeah, I've been coming here for a couple of years, and I usually give classes regarding ambulances and fire trucks. The fire trucks, I'm not really a fire truck expert. I do more just electrical, which is broadly applicable to both ambulances and fire trucks. And this week I was to give a ambulance HVAC test and a fire apparatus advanced electrical class.
And these are considered test prep classes. So
yes.
For those who don't know, at the end of the Fire Truck Training Conference on the last day, there is a full day of testing. You can actually do it in the beginning as well. But obviously the test prep classes are going to lead up to that. Talk about what comprises a test prep class.
Oh, that's a really good question. The idea of giving a test prep class has two goals. First of all, give the technicians, the students, as much information as possible in the shortest amount of time. And second of all, do so in such a way that makes them a better technician and doesn't just simply give away the answers to the test. I'll often ask the students to raise their hands and say, what would you rather get out of this test? Would you rather become a better technician, or do you simply want to pass the test? And I usually get about a 90-10 ratio that they're primarily interested in becoming a better technician, which I really appreciate because there's an integrity issue that is involved as someone who both trains and works with the EVTCC, the Emergency Vehicle Technician Certification Commission. Since we write the tests, I'm intimately familiar with them, and my training has to be targeted that I'm giving them the information without just allowing them to memorize answers to test questions.
Now, we mentioned the EVTCC, that's the EVT Certification Commission.
Yep.
I always trip up on that. Since I've got you, are there any updates coming out soon from the EVTCC that boy, I'm going to be tongue-tied during today, that EVTs should be aware of?
Well, we're constantly changing and trying to improve our product. Our product are tests. We write test questions. And recently, we have increased our staff by 50%. We have gone from 2 overworked people to 3 overworked people. And one of the other little news items is we have just begun within the last year the process of translating some of our tests into Spanish. And that is an enormous undertaking for a small group like ours. And like everything else that we do, it's only possible because of the huge number of volunteers that we have helping us with it. So we're going to have a devoted committee at our next validation conference in January of 2026, where we will have a group of guys that are bilingual, simply working on converting the multitude of tests that we have. And this will be a very long-term project as we convert the tests that we have from English into both English and Spanish. It's a real challenge translating because you need so much more expertise than simply a facility with the two languages. You have to understand the technical use of the terms involved. And that really narrows down the number of people that are able to do it. Another thing we're doing is we're working on developing a YouTube channel so that we can give people public access to the history of the organization, the personnel of the organization, sometimes just the challenges of our industry, and then also what we want to accomplish as we progress into the future. So as a small nonprofit, we really rely on the efforts of volunteers. Literally 90% of the people that help us do so on a volunteer basis. And they contribute their time, their efforts, their expertise to our efforts to try and make the world a safer place, not just for firefighters and EMTs, but for the public at large.
Now we're here at the Fire Truck Training Conference, so we are surrounded by EVTs, and your most recent articles on the rig, www.rigspot.com, have dealt with safety and liability, and the one that what I was and that can be found on rigspot.com. But one component of that is I really struck me. And I think it was part one, because you've written two parts so far. Part one just talked about how EVTs, the technicians, need to ask what if, so that down the line they don't have to say what now. And I was just, while I got you, I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit for the audience and just talk about what you meant by that.
Sure. First of all, a little background. Emergency vehicle technicians do basically three kinds of work. We maintain vehicles, we repair vehicles, and we diagnose vehicles. And those three types of work. So the what if, what now whole paradigm is simply when you are doing the maintenance inspection, where you are looking at things. You're looking at the underside of an ambulance or fire truck, or inside or outside or whatever, is to be fully engaged. It's very similar to driving. We still have accidents these days, and usually the accidents that we see today are not due to equipment failures. They're usually due to distraction sometimes, but it's really a lack of engagement. And the skills that you have to develop to be able to look at a rig and notice something that may or may not be on your preventive maintenance checklist can be a real challenge. Because as we do our due diligence, and if we have a fleet that is well maintained, it can lull us to sleep because we become used to not finding anything wrong. And when you don't expect something, a lot of times you will not see it even if it shows up. This is why people who are turning left across traffic will do so directly in front of traffic, because they're not expecting it and they only see what they expect. So learning to train your mind to look for things that you're not expecting to be there is a real skill, and it takes discipline to do it. But it's the part of human nature that tends to minimize the sense of risk. Because, thinking about risk when you're servicing an emergency vehicle can lead to unpleasant thoughts, but that's good. That's what it's supposed to be. And yet the culture is telling us that we should avoid stress, we should avoid difficulty, and sometimes we end up worrying more about worrying than we do about the safety of the rig for the next until we see it again in another service. And we need to be able to do that. It's the same skill that you have when you're reading service information. You have to see everything that's there. I suspect everybody who's watching this is familiar with having sent an email to someone and they get a reply that is not only evidence, but proof that at most a very small part of that email was read. And it's people that look at things but don't see what they're looking at.
Now, as we said, we're at a training event here, and you and I were speaking earlier today, actually, about AI, and just how it has really entered into just about everything we do these days. And so I'm curious: is AI impacting EVT training itself? Or the training, the delivery of that training. What is it? I mean, I'm sure if it's not now, it probably will later. We know that students today do not always consume the information that we're giving them in the same way that certainly I did back when I was starting in the fire service. I think I'm old enough, Kevin, although I don't feel that old, that back when I was taking some of the classes, they were still photo slides. So it was a slideshow, but it was a photo slide, not a PowerPoint slideshow.
I remember those days.
So it's evolved, and certainly it could permeate into AI could permeate into our training now, as the younger firefighters move more into the EVT roles, or as we get younger EVTs into the shops. So sorry, long way to ask. Is AI impacting EVT training right now?
Well, I'm sure it is. I think it's very difficult not to use AI. If you use a Google search, you are going to get an AI answer, usually at the top of the page. And I think the important thing is to use AI as a tool. I recently watched a YouTube video from a guy who's a proponent of using AI to its full extent. And he said that AI should be seen as a partner and not just a tool. And personally, I think that's misguided. I think that when you have a system that functions, and this is a quote, it functions by using algorithms without insight. And an algorithm is like a recipe. It's a series of steps that you follow to arrive at a particular conclusion, and that's the way computers work. They work with algorithms. But computers, I've never heard anybody contend that a computer actually has insight. Well, humans do. And I write articles, and Chris has an editor. And it is when the editor sees something, and we've had this conversation before. When he sees something that he doesn't understand, he can just call me up and say, hey, what did you mean by this? And I can say, this is what I meant by that. And you cannot do that with AI because AI doesn't mean anything. It is simply reaching into its bag of data and coming out with what it appears to, whether it's predicting the next word in a sentence as you're typing and it's trying to tell you what the next word should be, or whether it completely does that on its own, where it just gives the next word and then the next one and then the next one and the next one. You don't have that ghost in the machine of AI like you do in a human, where you have a clear understanding. Daniel Kahneman talks about in his book on Thinking Fast and Slow that a computer is something that really doesn't know what it's doing. And quite often, the results of AI do not align with the intents of the human behind it. And there's a book about it called The Alignment Problem, which I also highly recommend. It's an excellent book. And so in the use of AI, and I use it myself, but I think to use it successfully, you need to start small and proceed incrementally and then evaluate how the end product is being delivered. So I don't think AI will ever take the place of an instructor. And one of the things that we've discovered over the last half a dozen years, just before, during, and now post-COVID, is that there is no substitute for the human interaction that takes place in a classroom. Now, the class size will definitely impact that. But being without that, I have attended, I have given virtual classes done live, and the fact that it's done live and you can have a question and answer session afterwards is a positive, but it is still not the same as, because what's missing is all of that communication that you get just by looking at someone's face and seeing the expression on their face as they look at you. And there's an enormous amount of communication that's going on there that just can't occur either virtually or certainly not if AI becomes the instructor.
That kind of rolls me right into my next point that I wanted you to touch on, and that is that we are here at one of those live events. Where you're going to have that communication, where you're going to have that engagement in real time and with real people, sitting right across from each other. But I just wanted you to touch on, this event is, I believe it is the largest group of people who take the EVT tests come to this. This is like the largest test site.
Single test site, yeah.
And and all during the week, you're going to be here. Other instructors are going to be here leading test prep classes. There are also a number of classes. There are supplier led classes. There are and those supplier-led classes are on different levels. There's one going on downstairs right now. That's a pump rebuild class, and I'm sure by now they've probably got one apart, and they're or at least are looking at the model of it to figure out how they would put it back together. There's a lot of there are a bunch of chassis down there that are with their cabs tilted for engine classes. So there is that interaction. Could you just comment on how important conferences like this geared toward the EVTs are to the industry?
I think it's impossible to overstate how important venues like this are, because you have both the formal, like you just described, the training, the classroom experience where you have an instructor that can both instruct and read the audience and encourage questions, encourage engagement. One of the things that I tell people in class is they have to get outside their comfort zone. And then I try to lead them into that so that they're willing to engage, give the right answer, the wrong answer, and just get involved in their own instruction. But you also have the informal part. That is one of my favorite parts of coming to this conference, is meeting people that I've known before, recognizing that familiar face. But the other one is sitting at a different table at every meal. Where are you from? What do you do? What do you work on? What do you like about your job? What do you not like about your job? That human interaction will develop relationships that you will not get if you don't have someone like, in this case, Rev Group, that's willing to put on a conference like this. And the enormous amount of work that goes into developing this conference, I think, is commendable, and it's extremely important to the future of the industry.
You mentioned sitting down at a different table every time with different people. I do that as well. I talk to people. I see, just talk about, your first time attendees, or your repeat attendee. But one of my favorite things about this is before the class starts. So let's just say, as an example, I was just at an air brake system class. And what is interesting is before the class begins, as people are starting to come in, they all start talking together.
Yes.
And they all start troubleshooting different problems that they've had. They're all sitting there solving each other's problems.
Yes.
One's on the West Coast, one's on the East Coast. They've all had the same thing happen, and they're all sitting there, kind of solving each other. It's really cool. The networking also that goes on here, not only for contacts, but also just the problem solving, and it never fails. No matter what the class is, before it starts, they're all sitting there talking about this, that, or the other thing that they've had, and some guy in the back will chime in. You're like, well, yeah, I had the same thing.
Yeah, I was doing a class out on the Western United States one time, and it was supposed to be 6 hours of classroom and then 2 hours of hands-on. And as I finished up the classroom portion, one of the students raised a hand and asked a question that I could not answer. I wasn't aware. And another student said, I've run into that. And they started talking. And this is where the magic happens, because the whole group started a roundtable discussion, and the head of the organization who brought me in to train, our eyes met, and I just went like this, and he goes like this, and we just let it go. So for 2 hours, they had this conversation going on, which was just a sharing of expertise where it's the kind of thing that would absolutely never happen in a virtual class. It was an absolute joy to watch. That's
funny. It's almost like, well, I can go.
Yeah.
I'm not needed here anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the facts of life is nobody's getting any younger. And I'm not going to do this forever. And what I want to do is leave behind a group of people that can just take over. And in order to do that, we're going to need some new blood in the industry.
Well, Kevin, I want to thank you for taking time out. I know that you are busy here. You're polishing up your presentations for your test prep classes. But I just wanted to see if there are any general comments you wanted to make, or just a takeaway that you'd like people to walk away with today after they finish this up.
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we as an industry face is that we need technicians, and of course, a technician is not just somebody that can fog a mirror. A technician is someone who has very specific levels of expertise. And we need technicians, we need trainers, but we also need the culture to respect people that work with their hands. And this has degraded over the last few decades, where we've been trying to train everyone to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. And I call it majoring in school debt. And we need emergency vehicle technicians. We need plumbers. We need people that are able to derive satisfaction from working with their hands, because it's not tough. Once you get into that, there's a lot of satisfaction to be found in working with your hands. So as we get older and as one generation retires and looks for the other generation to take over, we need that young blood and new people. We need to inspire them to meet the challenge and to take charge of the responsibilities that technicians do every day to keep the emergency vehicles running.
And the EVTCC is part of accepting that challenge. Can you just go real quick just through a little bit of how can they find out more information about the EVTCC if they don't already know, if they're looking to pursue that certification?
Sure. I really have always appreciated the way, I remember when I first started as an EVT and really enjoyed the way the system is set up, where we give you a list of learning objectives and reference materials. And you will never see a surprise on an EVT test, because all the information that you need is available on our EVTCC.org website. And the reference materials, that's a real challenge for us, because as time goes on, some of them fall out of use, and some of them we have to constantly keep those upgraded, or updated, I should say. But most of what you need to know will be available if you're willing to put forth the effort and find it on our website and do your own class preparation. Then we strongly recommend that class preparation starts with the individual, and coming to a class like this should be more icing on the cake than the cake itself.
Okay, well, again, Kevin, my thanks to you for taking time out of your schedule here in Lansing today. If there are topics that you would like us to hit on EVT Talk, let me know. I'm at chris.mcloone@clarionevents.com. All of our podcasts are archived at www.fireapparatus.com/podcast, so you can go back and see previous editions of EVT Talk. And of course, Kevin's articles that we talked about a little bit here today, they can be found at www.rigspot.com. So again, my thanks to you, Kevin. Everyone, again, this has been Chris Mc Loone with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Have a good one and stay safe. This episode is brought to you by Rescue Intellitech, innovating solutions to keep firefighters safe. Their Solo Rescue Decon Washer helps reduce cancer risks by cleaning contaminated gear quickly and effectively. Learn more at rescueintellitech.com because clean gear saves lives.